This is Get Real with Bob and Stacy, the show that helps you learn about the mortgage and real estate markets. Get the inside scoop from their expert list of guests and have some fun along the way. Now, here's Bob Gallagher and Stacy Alcorn.
Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacy, and you're joining us for our Leaders and Legends segment. Our first guest today is Alex Palmer, journalist and author of The Santa Claus Man. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks, Bob. Great to be here.
So I want to tell everybody a little background on Alex's book, The Santa Claus Man. By the way, it's available on Amazon. It is the true story of a New York businessman who set out to answer New York City children's letters to Santa. Thousands of these letters were destroyed by the U.S. Post Office, but John Gluck Jr. changed that by creating the Santa Claus Association. For 15 years, he delighted the public, matching heartwarming Santa letters to people and companies eager to answer the kids' Christmas wishes. He became a jazz-age celebrity, rubbing shoulders with the era's movie stars and politicians, and even planned to erect a Santa Claus monument in the center of Manhattan until corruption and dark motives were discovered behind his cheerful works. It's a fascinating and fun holiday story, bringing readers right into the action of this very exciting page-turner. And again, it's The Santa Claus Man by Alex Palmer, available on Amazon. So tell us, Alex, about your decision to write the book. How did you first hear about the story?
Yeah, thanks, Stacey. Yeah, funny enough, John Gluck is actually a distant relative of mine, and I had it was at Christmas a couple years back. My uncle had mentioned this figure in our family who played Santa Claus to the children of New York 100 years ago. He didn't know a lot of details about it, so I just thought that was a really fun story. I was thinking this might be a fun little article, or maybe there's a little heartwarming tale to tell. So I started digging into the backstory and doing some research, and found out there was so much more here, not only of this group, the Santa Claus Association, how much attention it had gotten when it first came out, but then also sort of his downfall that resulted from it as well. So realized there was just a much richer story there, and ended up digging into it for a couple of years to put the book together.
Wow. So who was John Gluck Jr. as a person, and what was the scheme that he came up with to answer kids' Christmas letters?
Yeah, he's an interesting character. He was this customs broker in New York. He grew up in Brooklyn, and then his family was in New Jersey. And he went into his family business of customs broking, and that just was not something that particularly interested him. He really had this imagination, a lot of personality. He was a great storyteller, and wanted to do something more exciting with his life. As I think a lot of people who've made career transitions, you kind of hit that point where you're like, I want to do something more fun. He came upon this idea when he was reading the newspaper article that the post office in 1912 had changed its policy. So before, Santa Claus letters were just sent to the dead letter office and destroyed, as you would with any other letter that you couldn't find somebody to deliver it to. There wasn't a Santa Claus address at that point that they could go to. So he read about this, that the post office now had changed their policy from the dead letter office to being willing to give the letters to any organization or individual who was approved by the postmaster. He volunteered. No one else in New York had, or at least none of them had come up with as thoughtful of a way to answer the letters as Gluck did. So he developed this whole plan with the Santa Claus Association that he founded, which would match each individual letter to an individual New Yorker. So if there was a letter from Bobby asking for a toy truck, then an individual New Yorker could get Bobby's letter, pick up that truck and mail it to him as Santa Claus, or even personally deliver it. And this way, it cut down on overhead. It wasn't that the group was taking money to buy these gifts. It was all just done through individual generosity of individual New Yorkers.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the concept sounds amazing. And It seems like he started out with good intentions, but then he saw a chance to make some money. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as I was saying, that when it was first proposed, this whole idea was that this would not require any money. There's no donations needed. It was all done just through sort of a crowdsourced way of playing Santa throughout the city. But as this group first took off, 1913 it started, and each year it kind of got bigger and bigger. There were larger scale publicity stunts they would do. They would get major celebrities of the era, Doug Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, John Barrymore. They all kind of pitched in at different times, the politicians, and it soon was catching so much attention. The press covered it every year in detail that suddenly Gluck saw some opportunity, and he started adding in requests, not just asking for people to come forward to answer children's letters, but to donate some money to buy stamps, and then to donate some money to buy office supplies for the group and letterhead that they could use. And then they started saying, he announced that the Santa Claus Association was creating a gift buying committee that would actually do the buying on donors' behalf, and all they needed was money to do so. So these subsequent year after year, the requests for money just got more and more elaborate. And then kind of the pinnacle of it was, you'd mentioned earlier, the Santa Claus building that he announced one year right after this Christmas season, where it was going to be this massive structure that would have a stained glass Santa at the front, this toy showroom, major both set of charity operations, but also a high-end restaurant on site, and it would be a year-round monument to the Christmas spirit. But he said he just needed $300,000 to pay for it. So he asked the public to contribute to this, and sure enough, a lot of people did open up their wallets to try to make this happen.
I don't think that sounds bad.
So far, it doesn't.
No, I think he sounds like an
fun.
amazing person still. Like, that's
You should
kind
see
of
that
awesome.
actually, yeah.
I don't think it's bad. Like, you need money to run these
You do,
things.
yeah, especially if it was
Like,
getting that big.
I mean,
Right.
there's staff. So I don't know. I don't.
Does it turn out that he was skimming off the top?
Well, and that's the problem. Yeah, because all that sounds pretty fair,
He
right?
should
Yeah,
get
that
paid.
sounds good.
Well,
He
even
needs-
I wouldn't
needs
call it
this
skimming.
income.
He needs a paycheck. Seriously.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like
And-
executive
and,
director.
that's true.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah. And unfortunately, as it would seem that this is a pretty fair request in a lot of ways,
Yes.
but it actually took a few different organizations and individuals started looking into the Santa Claus Association, and what finally did it was there was the Public Welfare Commissioner, who is this real hard-charging guy who took over the role of overseeing the city's charities and other different kind of public works. He started really looking deep into these different organizations and doing things like requiring licenses for street solicitors and doing more centralizing, more oversight of the different charity groups. And he was sort of the one person that really stuck it to the Santa Claus Association of trying to find out, okay, how exactly is this money being spent, and really was asking these questions. And at first, Gluck was able to kind of push him off and didn't really, didn't show his paper or his reports and things like that, and kind of, just avoided it. But eventually, he finally was forced to kind of open his books, and there was a lot of missing money that was found and unaccounted for money, and kind of combined with some other schemes that I get into in the book that Gluck had been doing sort of in parallel with the Santa Claus Association. There was sort of enough evidence that it was pretty clear this money wasn't just going to do Santa's work.
Oh, so he...
Well, I'm gonna have
that's
to
too
read the
bad.
book because I'm still.
I want to know. Yeah, you got to know the whole
I still
story.
like this guy because
That's great.
I mean, maybe. I mean, you have to get. That's why you look at like these big organizations, and they say like the Susan G. Komen, like only 3% of the money actually goes to helping cancer patients.
I didn't know it was that low.
It's low, but that's because there's a massive expense to running an organization. Like maybe at the end of the day, this guy just had like a big heart and wanted to do good things, and he should get paid for.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Even the president
but I
of
don't
the
know all
American
of
Red
it.
Cross makes money.
We'll have you back after the new year because I'm going to go back. I'm going to
We can do a
read.
follow-up.
Yeah,
Yes, because
yeah.
I'm going to read the book, and then maybe I'll have a different opinion. But I still think this guy's a Santa Claus. This
Yeah,
is
he's-
amazing.
Well, I like that.
Yeah,
and,
he's-
and I really do. I like that. That's your takeaway, because I do think he, in researching and writing it, he really was. He wasn't like a villain, and exactly. He's kind of does a lot of like so many good things that at the end of the day, he really did leave quite a legacy of answering the Santa letters and doing a lot of good work. But he has these sort of shadier aspects too. But he's a really kind of complicated, interesting guy.
See, you know what? If you turn it into a movie, it could be like Miracle on 34th Street meets The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Could be a little combination right down the middle.
Actually, we pitched it as Miracle on 34th Street meets Wolf of Wall Street.
That's really, really good. I like that.
So, do you think it lasted? First of all, how long was it? 15 years, I think, that this all went
15
on?
years, yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, from like the first big announcement to when it finally had to shut its doors.
wow.
But
So-
they did give presents to a lot of
Yeah.
kids, though.
Yeah, unquestionably, there was probably about 250,000 all told that throughout those 15 years of who kids, and some of them were poor kids that never would have gotten the
Right.
gifts from their parents. So there really was a lot of good done, and he really facilitated this. These are things that the letters would have just gone unanswered. So despite his sort of shadier aspects, he did do a lot of good.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at the time frame, too. I mean, 100 years ago, people's top priority was not getting Christmas presents for their kids. It was putting food on the table,
Yeah,
really.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, this is really, throughout World War I. It was during that era when there was a lot of belt tightening, and it was. There were actually a lot of letters where kids actually requested coal because they were so cold and
Oh
they
my
didn't. They
gosh.
needed. It was a necessity. So rather than like punishment for being naughty, they were
Wow.
They
seeing
wanted
that as a
heat.
gift.
Wow.
That's so. My kid wants an upgraded iPad.
Yeah,
Where's his old?
very different era.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what do you think about the concept working today, putting people and companies together with Santa requests? Could it work?
Absolutely, and actually, it still does work. The group, what Gluck had started with the Santa Claus Association when he finally, his right to answer Santa's letters was stripped from him and the association. It ended up coming back to the post office, and it was sort of informal at first, but it's really evolved now into a formal process that's not all that different from what Gluck had put in place. It's called Operation Santa Claus, run throughout the country now. It had really been formalized in the same New York post office Gluck had been working from, and it's run in a similar way. A few tweaks they make, though, that I think do fit for our more modern times. They, the letters are all anonymous now, so you can go in. I did this just last year. You can go into the post office and you show them your ID. You get a letter with the name is redacted, but you can look through as many letters as you like till you find the one that kind of speaks to you. I pretty much looked for one that wasn't asking for something totally out of my budget. So I found one like a kid asking for a soccer ball and some candy. So I'm like, okay, I can handle that. You go and you pick it up, and then you bring it, you wrap it and bring it to the post office. They then have a number on that letter, and they can personally deliver it. So it does work, but now just with a couple extra steps. And speaking to the guy, Pete Fontana, who's in charge of that program, or who was until last year, they're looking at maybe introducing something where they scan the letters so you could actually go online and answer the letters through that way. So there's new kind of tech. They're trying to sort of embrace technological tools so that Santa can use those as well.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if you just made it part of Amazon, it'd be even easier. Pick out the toy and they
Yeah.
just deliver it. It's pretty cool.
Add an extra gift to your
Yes.
order.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because it could
Yeah.
pop up and say, like, a kid wants this gift. Are you interested in buying
Yeah,
it?
and it could even assign somebody that's in like
Yes.
your town or near you. That'd be pretty
Totally.
cool. Yeah.
Huh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see more along those lines. I know there's a different things like emailsanta.com and like packageforsanta.com that do sort of their own kind of version, but it still has room to grow. I think playing Santa is an always evolving job.
Right.
Yeah.
So your book is a terrific stocking stuffer. I know that it's less than $17 on Amazon, and it's a timely topic. Who would enjoy this book most?
It really has a couple big audiences. I think anyone who's a fan of just the Christmas season, who wants to learn more about the history of Christmas. I really get into not only Gluck's wild story, but the history of everything from where Christmas trees came from, Christmas ornaments, the history of Santa letters, and Santa Claus himself. So it's a good sort of, if you just sort of want to embrace the sort of trappings of Christmas and enjoy that, it's a fun read. But also if you're a fan of history and maybe a little bit of true crime and these sort of con man characters, he's a lot of fun just to read about. And New York in the Jazz Age is just a fun era. So if you're a fan of New York history as well, I think it's a good fit.
Wow, that's awesome. And you've gotten the opportunity to kind of expose this guy to your entire family, who probably didn't even
Yeah.
realize he was part of your ancestry.
No, all of my family members were sort of surprised. It was one of the people who I interviewed was a distant cousin of mine who was the only person I spoke to who actually knew him. She'd been a child knowing him, and yes, she didn't know so much about his own story, even though she was the only person I was able to talk to who was actually, had actually spent time with him. But even she didn't know all these sort of backstory to him.
Right.
Did he have a family as well?
He had a wife. He actually had 3 wives over time, but he never had children.
Maybe that's why I got into this.
Yeah. He was. It was an interesting thing that he was a bachelor actually at the time when he started it. So it was people were like, well, you think that this is an odd choice for somebody like that, but he sort of put all his energy into it. So it was kind of a way to sort of get that out. But also interestingly enough, he was sort of cosmically meant to do this role. At least he thought, because he was actually born on Christmas Day.
Really?
Oh wow!
Yeah.
This guy is Santa.
Yeah, this just keeps getting better, doesn't it?
He was sort of the perfect guy to do this.
So, what was your favorite Christmas story? Obviously, besides this one about your relative.
I love Miracle on 34th Street is still a favorite of mine. Like, if we're going to go for like classic Christmas tales, that's still one that it's kind of timeless and been retold so many times. It's hard to pass on that one.
I would agree. I do like the updated version of it a little better, though.
Yeah, it is. It's got its benefits for sure. And I mean, I think they've made a few now. It's like always due for a refresh, sort of like a Christmas Carol. It never grows old, I think.
Yeah. Excellent.
Wow. Awesome stuff. This is Alex Palmer, and the book is The Santa Claus Man. So make sure you get over to Amazon. Still time to order and time for Christmas. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Bob and Stacey. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a quick commercial break.
Happy holidays.
Thanks. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.